And when you have people saying that you changed their life, even if it's one person, that fuels me. That's motivation. In addition to breaking curses, that's prove them wrong. Prove them wrong is about when people are negative, being kind.
Yeah.
Prove them wrong is about all the family, all the friends, all the people that said that you can't do something and you do it.
Welcome to the I Own It podcast with Ben Reinberg.
All right, we are live from the Ben Reinberg I Own It studios today in Laguna Beach, California, and it just keeps getting better every day. We just have an incredible guest. He's from my hometown, which I'm so grateful he was able to come in studio today. Dre Evans, welcome to the show. It's so nice to see you, and thanks for joining us.
Thank you. I appreciate you for having me.
So let's get into it. You have an incredible life story. You're from Chicago. You're a former gang member, went into the Naval Academy, successful real estate investor, an author, a motivational speaker. And this past week, as I learned more about your story, one theme I saw was taking personal responsibility, which is the name of the show, I Own It. It's owning every aspect of your life, whether with life choices or personal finances. To kick things off, I was hoping to share more about your background and your books and your real estate company to our audience.
Yeah, I'll start to say I'm just a kid from Chicago. I always resonated with that. I always felt like I was the underdog. And you talk about taking ownership and taking responsibility. And I talk about it in the book, Prove Them Wrong. There came a point where I was getting D's and F's in school. Mom, I was in trouble so much that she wanted to get me psychologically tested. And it came to a point she took me to my grandmother's house and she was like, I don't know what else to do with him anymore. And I just bust down crying. My mom and my grandmother are like my why in life. And from that moment, I just wanted to change. And then you fast forward, we had the drive-by shooting. I survived that. And then there was that like, listen, if I stick to where I'm at now, I'm probably going to die or be in prison. And taking accountability for where I wanted to go in life and accountability for my actions and how they would impact my family. And from there, I confronted the gang and I took accountability in front of them and saying, hey, I want to do something different with my life. I have the opportunity of a lifetime to go to the Naval Academy and I'm willing to die and fight to escape. And in the process of them beating me out, they stopped and they gave me that opportunity. They gave me that golden ticket and allowed me to escape Chicago and go to the Naval Academy. And so that's another reason why I had that fire in me to really put on for the city of Chicago, put on for the South Side, put on for my mother, put on for my family and everyone that was looking up to me. And when I left, I didn't look back.
That's fantastic. So I'm curious, do you have any strong role models growing up? Anyone that influenced you?
My mother.
Your mother?
My mother and my grandmother.
Oh, that's fantastic. I have the same thing. My mom is my inspiration who got me into commercial real estate. She's the one that pushed me and said, you can do it. And mothers are so special. So I really value that. Going from a gang member to the Naval Academy is a big jump in mindset, as you know, especially for a teenager. And I'm really interested, how did that evolution occur? And did all three triplets follow the same trajectory as teenagers?
No. So my brothers were big into video games.
Okay.
Growing up, they were the type of guys, they would sit down at the TV and play Call of Duty or Super Mario Bros. For hours on end. And after an hour, I was just tired of it. I just never was a game head. And I would get up after being bored and explore the streets. And we are so close, triplets, but very different walks of life. And it's really the best way I can put it. I think that ultimately I came to a point where you see so much violence in Chicago. Every time you turn on the TV, this is happening. This is a shooting here. And it's very easy for African-American males my age going up in the South Side to be like, I hope I make it to 21. And I don't know, at some point I took a step back and I was like, why is it that way? Like, why? Like, what if I did make it out? What if I did become more? And just having that reflection to myself, asking that question, made me start to dream a little bit more. It made me start to envision what life would be outside of the walls of the South Side. And from there, to shift my mindset, I got into affirmations. I'm very big into sticky notes. I talk about it in the book, Prove Them Wrong. I talk about it even when I bought my first investment property, the multifamily. I literally would print out the picture of the property and post it on my window. And she'll tell you, I have it even in my car. Like there's a sticky note in my car. Every time I get in my car, I read it. Every single time. I don't care if I get
What
it.
does that say, that sticky note?
It could be my goals. It could
Okay.
be give back to more kids, touch 5 kids today. It could be grow the podcast more, write 2 more books. It could be whatever it is that is on my spirit or where I feel like I'm being led to at that time. But I read that because I'm constantly trying to trick my mind. And the idea of that if I have all these limiting beliefs from growing up as a kid in Chicago, which I know I definitely had, how do I overcome that? And to me, the only thing I could do was read those affirmations to believe that. It's just like you could take a woman,
Mm-hmm.
she could be the most beautifulest woman in the world.
Yep.
But if every day I told her she was ugly, eventually she's going to grow up and believe she's ugly. Why?
right.
Because I told her that every single day. And everyone else think like, no, you're gorgeous. But that's how the mind works. So I have to trick my mind to believing that I am capable of buying this multifamily property, overcoming adversity, coming out of my situation in Chicago. And that is what I did to escape the gang life and trick my mindset to thinking I could make it out and do something better.
That is such an amazing thing you said, because who you surround yourself with and the thoughts that people put in your mind have such an impact. And that's what you just touched on. And I feel the same way. I live my life that way. It's a beautiful thing. And for everyone out there that's listening, is that be careful who you surround yourself with. Be careful of the thoughts in your head. You want to stay empowered every day if you can. And it's unbelievable how many thoughts we have in our head. And did the Navy train you your mindset and how to think? Because as whether you go into combat or you're interacting with your contemporaries in the Naval Academy, was that something that was taught on a significant basis as you went through your training?
They taught you how to lead even in the first of adversity. It was compounded from Chicago.
Right.
And confidence. So we had this thing called chow calls. Imagine a square deck plate and every person gets on each side.
Okay.
And there's breakfast meal,
Uh-huh.
lunch, and dinner.
Uh-huh.
And 10 minutes before that, once it hit the hour hit 12, we would have to shout and say, the menu for morning meal is top of your lungs, screaming, 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 screaming. You can YouTube it and see what I mean. I mean, you're saying it so fast, like you could almost not even decipher what I'm saying. And you're literally saying, the menu for breakfast is omelets, scrambled eggs, butter potatoes with green peppers, like the whole nine, with lemon cake, pound cake, whatever, coffee, orange juice, down to the last condiment. And then after that, you'll see the officer of the watch is the significant events of the day is this. And then you stop. And then once it's 12 again, you go again. And you do that for that 10 minutes. In addition to that, you have to know a current event that's going on and a sports topic, and then a current event for like international. So it's US, international, and then sports topic. And you had to know those. And you also had to know not just like if it's breakfast, they could also ask you lunch or dinner. And it was supposed to teach confidence. And I remember one time I didn't know the menu and I made it up. I made up my mom's cooking. I'm like macaroni and cheese, collard greens, turkey. And the guys looked at me like, Miss Chevin Evans, you're wrong. Made me get on my face and drop and do the push-ups. But afterwards, he said to me, this is exactly what the purpose of it is for. You said it with confidence. And the moral of the story is, I remember there's a lot of things that you go through at the Naval Academy, especially as a plebe that first year. And you're like, why am I doing this? Why am I going through this? But then you at the very end, you realize that it shapes you as a person, it shapes you as a leader. And that confidence in the sense that when you lead people and when you go through fear and you jump off that cliff to start that business or accomplish that goal, you have to go in confidence. You have to go in faith. Even when you are unsure, even when you are doubting yourself, you're still moving forward. When you're leading people and you're standing in front of them, you might not have all the answers and no one's expecting you to. I think people have the perception that if you have to start a business or if you have to lead people, you have to have everything dialed in. Everything is going to be right. But the universe isn't going to align and everything's not going to go your way for you to start that business or accomplish that goal. Jump off the cliff and go in confidence.
I love that. And it's so true. It's controlling your thoughts, controlling your emotions, having confidence. And what really you're touching on too is being aware.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things that most people don't understand is how I'm aware of my emotions, aware of, hey, you put that post-it note on your car. You're aware of what you want to achieve. You're aware of how you interact with your relationships. And that allows you to have confidence. It allows you to build deep-rooted relationships like this. And so I think it's an amazing thing. You know, your book, Prove Them Wrong, which is right in front of me. I'm really excited to read it. It was released in November 22.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a memoir motivational kick in the butt for readers, which I'm excited about. What inspired you to write it? And did you imagine 5 years ago you'd be writing a book like this and revealing so much of yourself to the whole world?
My mother was an author. She wrote marriage and Christian books.
Mm-hmm.
And everyone has a gift, some type of gifts. And I was lucky, I was blessed, I was fortunate that early on in high school, it was almost identified that I had a gift to write English. I always did well. Everything else, math, I was horrible at. But English was that one thing it made sense. When I went to the prep school at the Naval Academy, I had a professor named Dr. Phillips. He was a supply corps officer and basically business management for the Navy as an officer. And he was in Afghanistan. And I remember he picked up his assault rifle and defended this whole school of kids against the Taliban. And I always remember that story because he was so passionate about youth outreach. And we would have all these assignments in class and I would read them. And my classmates, we would have to read each other's papers. And they would always just be like, damn, Dre, like, you can write. And when people kept saying that to me, I'm like, maybe this is something here. Maybe I did get this gift to write from my mom. But then my professor started like keying in on that. And so we had this final assignment. In order to graduate from the prep school, Naval Academy prep school, because I wasn't smart enough to get into the Naval Academy right away, I needed to get a 2.0 to graduate. 2.0, 2.5, something like that. I was barely making it. Coming out of South Chicago, CPS, didn't have the academic lack. I wasn't properly educated. In order to pass, I needed an A in English. So the final writing assignment was the biggest portion of our grade. And I'm like, listen, in order for me to knock this out of the park, I have to talk about Chicago. It's the only thing I could write about and be authentic about. But I was scared because if I came out and told my story, they would kick me out because the Naval Academy has zero tolerance policy on gang involvement. And I remember sitting there in the office talking to Dr. Phillips, and I told him it was the complete opposite reaction. He supported me all the way. And from there, he really pushed that initiative to get me to write. So when I went to the Naval Academy and they found out about my story, I was traveling every weekend. I was in Detroit, Chicago multiple times, Newark, New Jersey, New York, Atlanta, Memphis, Jamaica prisons, all across. Speaking to kids, speaking to youth, telling my story. And everyone's like, you should write a book. You should write a book. And I always knew I wanted to. And it wasn't until I was in San Diego, Martin Luther King weekend. There was rain on the pavement. I was driving my Hellcat. Somebody cut in front of me. I jerked the steering wheel and I slammed. If you saw the picture of that, which is in the book, you would think I wouldn't even be here by now. I mean, literally, I was stuck in the car. Mm-hmm. Car was smoking. I had been in many near-death experiences before, but I'd never been in an experience like that where I felt like my life was over, like I was trapped, like I had no control. And I just remember thinking about my mom and my brothers, and I'm like, oh man, like this is it. And then somebody opened the door and pulled me out.
Wow.
And the next day, I started writing, and I wrote the book in a year.
No, that's fantastic. I want to ask you this. I'm really interested in how you approach personal motivation. I am really big into personal development. Mm-hmm. I've worked extremely hard to become the best version of Ben Reinberg, and now I'm there. And every day I get better. Mm-hmm. And you inspire me. In my mind, there are two main kinds of motivation. There's internal and being internally motivated, like having a personal vision for future you want to achieve, like your post-it note. And externally motivated, like more focus overcoming the next big challenge, the next big obstacle. Do those categories make sense to you? And do you agree? Or how do you think about motivation?
I think that the purpose of life is to give back and inspire people. I think that I myself am a believer, so I'm going to say God. Mm-hmm. I know everyone has their, say, universe or whatever else may be. But for me, I believe that God gives us all gifts and talents. And it is our ability and job on this earth to use those to give back. And you have many of them. For me, it's speaking is one. It could be through real estate. For example, LeBron James, he can use basketball to give back to people in a way that we couldn't.
That's right.
He can touch people in a way that we can't. The same way musicians do. The same way Rihanna or Drake can do it through music.
Mm-hmm.
And then they can use those revenues to create scholarships or nonprofits, or even bring kids in the studio by showing them and expanding their mind. And so in that same fashion, I believe that I'm supposed to do that through books. I am in the process of writing some children's books too, and making a series on that, and having those children's books focus on minorities though, and how each book, the kid starts a new business. And then there's the comic books, and then there's the real estate books. So I think I'm trying to tap into that many different ways from that motivation to give back. There's the speaking, there's through real estate. So ultimately, I think that I'm just trying to use all my gifts and all my talents to give back. And when you have people saying that you change their life, even if it's one person, that fuels me. That's motivation. In addition to breaking curses, that's prove them wrong. Prove them wrong is about when people are negative, being kind.
Yeah.
Prove them wrong is about all the family, all the friends, all the people that said that you can't do something and you do it. I think that I'm motivated by my circumstances. You know, I don't have a relationship with my biological father, and I've seen a lot of people in my family look back now and regret. And they're like, what if I did this? What if I did that? And that scares me.
Mm-hmm.
I think what I fear is being on my deathbed and looking back on life and like, damn, I didn't accomplish that. That eats me up because I've had so many people around me that I see now that like they live that. And when you see that at a young age as a kid growing up so much, and you see death so much, it makes you look at life differently. You realize that life is short. And so while I'm here, I have to make the most of it. You know, I can get a car accident right now and someone that I love could be taken from me,
Mm-hmm.
or I could be gone. And it's like, was it worth that argument?
Right.
Was it worth the things that we went through?
Yeah.
And I think that when you really take in perspective of life and how short it can be, and not wanting to look back and because there's nothing, I don't know, man, there's nothing I can do to shake that feeling. Like, you know, you can overcome things and you can learn from things, but you can never go back in life. And some opportunities you only get one chance to do. It's just like being, like J. Cole said in an interview, being a rapper. He only has that voltage for so long.
Right.
That ability to impact youth. And then once it's gone, once he gets older, you don't have it anymore.
You know what someone said to me the other day, which really made me take a step back and look at my life? And it kind of touched what you just said. He said, imagine, Ben, it's your last day. You're done after this day. How would you live it? How would you treat people?
Mm-hmm.
How grateful would you be for your relationships, employees, parents, brothers, anyone that you interact with? What would you do? What if you lived your life knowing that it was your last day every day, and you lived to the fullest?
Yeah.
You know, you were grateful for the little things, you know, the meals you eat, the people you interact. Wouldn't life be different? And I started thinking about it. I looked at it and I was like, man, he's right. Maybe I should be looking at that more. Maybe the gratitude and taking a step back and saying, you know what? Maybe every moment I should appreciate. Maybe every breath, maybe waking up every day. And so I took a step back, and it really changed me to look at that. One of the things that I'm doing is I'm going to start teaching commercial real estate. And it touches on yours. Being from Chicago, I said, you know, with all the knowledge I've had to grind and work hard. I didn't come for money to get to where I'm at. And I said, what if I can impact one person's life? And so I give an example of a kid from the south side of Chicago. And I said, what if I could take that kid, man or woman, young man or woman, teach them commercial real estate, let them build wealth, build a legacy for their family. What if it changed their parents' trajectory, grandparents, daughter, brother, sister, and it impacted 30 people? And then that 30 people had impacted 1,000, and 1,000, 10,000. What if we can do that? And so that's what inspires me, is to give back and teach someone that didn't have that opportunity, just like I didn't. I said, well, what if we can open the door for them and let them build a legacy? So it was very well said what you said, because that's what resonates with me as well. I wanted to ask this because I love commercial real estate. I'm in commercial real estate. Multifamily is commercial real estate. What motivated you to get into real estate? And share some context of your company. That's my property.
I never thought I would be doing real estate.
Uh-huh.
That kid from Chicago mentality. Just not thinking I could dream that big. I was at a coffee shop in Bay Park community of San Diego. One of my buddies, Keegan Wetzel, Naval Academy graduate, supply corps officer, he had bought a 3-unit in Bay Park, $1.4 million.
Yeah.
Gorgeous property,
Uh-huh.
cash flowing. And I'm sitting there venting to him about, man, like the Navy's not it. I feel like I have a ceiling over my head. I feel like I'm being called to do more by God. And I'm like, until Proven Wrong comes out, there's no way I can provide enough income to change the narrative of financial poverty and bondage over my family and free my mom. Get her out of Chicago, move her to Arizona. And I'm venting to him and he says the words, you should buy a multifamily. And I'm like, what is that? First time ever hearing it. And then he basically explains to me it's just another word for apartment building. And he's trying, like Ben, like he's sitting there trying to explain it to me and for like a good 30 minutes. And it's just going over my head because I just can't, it was a lot.
Mm-hmm.
So then he's like, okay, I'll show you. So we get in my car, we drive up the street, and then we pull up to his multifamily property. I'm like, okay. So I get it. Okay, so I see it now. It's an apartment building. So we go upstairs, and he pulls up CoStar and the MLS and LoopNet and everything else and Crexy, and he's showing me different properties in San Diego, and they're all like 1.5 million, 1.7. I'm like, no way, I don't have that money. I'm like, come on now. Like, I have no one in my family that's wealthy. What is this here? Okay, I get it. You show me what you're talking about, but come on, bro, I can't afford that. And he still, for the next hour, then at that point, shows me how to analyze a small multifamily property, and he's just going through it all, and it's overwhelming. So I took a step back, and if Keegan could tell it, he'd think he scared me away. But I went away, man, and I read everything I could about real estate. I read every book on multifamily real estate, listened to every podcast I could, listened to every YouTube video I could, and something in me clicked and was just like, what if I make this work, I'll forever change the narrative of my family.
That's right.
And so from there, I started looking. And after several months, I took a few months to educate myself, and then I acted. I didn't do analysis paralysis. I moved forward, and after a while, I found that first property in Mission Hills. It was a 4-unit. It was 1.4 million. Put the offer on it, and I could have went into escrow. They countered back, but something in my gut was like, not this one. It needed a lot of work. The views were amazing. It overlooked. You could see the San Diego airport. It was on top of a hill. It was gorgeous, but it just needed a lot of work.
Right.
And I'm glad I waited because something the next day, the numbers are tough. It's San Diego, high market in terms of price for the properties.
Mm-hmm.
And even when you plug in those rents, you learn different metrics of different properties. And that goes with learning as you analyze deals. That's why you want to do it, because as you know, you learn the specific dynamics of a market. And you learn that San Diego is built on multifamily, but a lot of the units are 1-1s.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I can only rent, even in San Diego, I can only rent a 1-1 for so much. But then I got this high purchase price for the property. And then something one day was like, just go bigger. What if you remove the cap on why are you limiting yourself? What if I remove it? Because I was setting my parameters at 1.4, 1.5. Just remove it, see what comes up. And when I did that, I started running the numbers, and just going a little bit more was what I started to see more properties that could work. And I found that 4-unit in PB, Pacific Beach, $2 million property. And that was the first one I closed on.
How'd you capitalize it?
I used my VA loan.
Oh, wow.
So
clever. I really like that.
Contrary to people's belief, I
Yeah.
know people think that VA loan is zero down, but it's not. When you are buying a multifamily property, and especially you're doing an expensive market like San Diego, it's not zero down. Because even if they take the rents to help you qualify for the loan, whatever the debt service is, so in that case, mine was $10,000, $500 a month, you need to have 6 to 9 months of reserves for that.
Mm-hmm.
And I got lucky where my mom said to me when I left home, she said, nobody in this family has ever been responsible with their money.
Mm.
And I wasn't investing or anything, nothing like that fancy. I didn't know anything about investing. But I remember her saying that to me. And that was that idea of making mama proud. And I was like, okay, I'm going to save. I'm going to have a Roth IRA and I'm going to save. And that's all I did. And I got lucky that when that time came and the lender was like, and the underwriter said, hey, you need 6 to 9 months of reserves off of $10,500, which, as you know, that's like $100,000, $200,000.
Yep.
I had it.
That's great.
And that's what allowed me to qualify for the loan, put the property manager in place. And it took me 4 months to close on that property because the lender was like, this dude has no experience whatsoever. But I didn't give up. I was getting hit with fines, getting hit with fees, which is in the Brook. That's my property, how I did the first deal. But again, I never gave up. And I closed on Christmas Eve.
My first deal was I was 23 years old.
Mhm.
It was Northbrook, Illinois. And I bought industrial. I'm an office, industrial, and retail expert. That's what I know.
Nice.
Not a multifamily guy, but I get it. I understand the analysis. And no money. And I went to my godfather, and I went to a local bank, and I asked him, and I said, do you think I can get a loan for this? No balance sheet.
Mhm.
And he gave me an 80% LTV loan to buy this 95,000 square foot industrial building.
Okay.
So I raised a couple $1,000,000, just threw on a suit, and just would go whoever I knew. Can you introduce me to this person, and just for a month, just humped. I said, I'd like your Post-it note. I said, I'm going to get this done. Now, meanwhile, this is early 90s. Internet's not prevalent at that time. Okay. I don't have the resources. I don't know, like, okay, can I Google something and just go to this certain area and start knocking on doors? So I just figured it out, got the money raised. He got me the loan, closed it. First week, I lose 45% of the income in the building. Guy moves out in the middle of the night.
Wow.
I'm young. I'm like freaking out.
Yeah.
So I'm like, how am I going to deal with this? I haven't been through life experiences yet. I was young. I end up backfilling it, make it a 3-tenant building. It was a 2-tenant building. I bought it, sold it for a 3x profit, made my investors a lot of money, and that's what launched me. And that was my story. So I always love the story of how you get started, because I can reflect back on mine, and I know how challenging it is, and it's scary. It's like, am I going to get this loan? And so the fact that you're able to get a loan is fantastic. I love that. So your company focuses on multifamily real estate. We touched on that. What's your key buying criteria now?
I'm very bullish on San Diego. So anything small multifamily, large multifamily in San Diego, I'm fair game. You have to be more creative in that way too, because it is a different type of market. But my whole connection base is there. I've got the meetup there, the podcast, all the networking events. So that's why I choose there. I know people have different opinions about that, but I make it work. So I'm more flexible. As long as I can break even, I'm buying it.
Are cap rates fairly low in San Diego?
Cap rates are low, but the reason why I do that is because supply and demand, basic economics. It's not like LA. It's not like San Francisco.
Right.
San Diego's constrained. Can't build anymore.
That's right.
So that's another reason why it's recession-resistant market.
Yeah.
They're bringing so much. We're about to be one of the best biotech hubs. We've got so many things that drive that MSA. We've got military. We've got tourism. We've got life science and biotech. We've got so much. And it's still growing. I mean, they're changing the waterfront. They're doing Chula Vista. They're doing Seaport Village. Like, there's so much. They're redoing downtown. They're rebuilding the airport. San Diego is a small city right now, but it's about to be a big city in 5 or 10 years. They're redoing East Village, all around the Padres Stadium. It's going to change.
Well, what's great about that is that there's a high barrier to entry.
Yes.
God's not making any more land,
Yep.
as we know. And when you have high barriers to entry, it puts this upward pressure on rents. So you'll get appreciation, which is why if you could take down a deal and say, I have the ability to hold, I'll be patient, a year or two from now, you raise rents.
Exactly.
That's a beautiful
So that's
thing.
why I say, if you can, even if I'm break even, I'm always going to get appreciation, always. And rents are always going to go up.
That's fantastic. Are there any other asset classes that you've ever invested in besides multifamily?
No, but I want to diversify.
Okay.
So I'm sure at some point we'll talk
Well, you
more
picked
about
the right
that.
guy.
Yes.
So my expertise, like office industrial retail. So on my 28 plus year career, 17 years ago, we got into medical and veterinary properties and did extremely well. And so we focus a lot. We just launched a new fund called the Alliance Medical Property Fund, where we are investing in medical properties and veterinary properties throughout the United States. So I deal in the smile states. I start Virginia and I go all the way down. And, you know, if you drew a smiley face through the United States, so we're in over 30 states and very active. And so that's my passion. And so, yeah, if you ever want to learn about other asset classes, just hit me up.
Most
I'll
definitely.
teach you. Your company also focuses on teaching multifamily real estate to investors who want to learn about the space. How do you approach teaching others how to invest like you do? And what is the hardest part in helping others so they can become successful at multifamily investing?
Putting in the work.
Yeah.
I've had very direct conversations because people call me a lot and reach out to me a lot. And I always say, meet me halfway, because they want you to hand them everything.
Right.
And it's like, well, did you do this? Did you do that? Did you educate yourself? They're like, show me how to raise capital. Well, did you read a book on raising capital yet? Like, you want me to sit here on the phone and tell you everything, and I can tell you everything, but you're still not going to get it, because what steps did you take to educate yourself, and what systems do you have in place? Okay, you want me to teach you about multifamily, but okay, what do you know? You know what a cap rate is? You know what the debt to income is? Like, do you know what the equity multiple is? Like, NOI? How do I teach you about commercial real estate if you don't even know the lingo? So how do you go to a networking event and think about it, right? If you educate yourself and you read even 2 books on commercial real estate and you're a beginner, and you go to a networking event, your questions are going to be way more pointed because you know the lingo and you have the ability to have a conversation. But if you go to someone, and especially you see people always want to find a mentor or someone that's more seasoned
That's
and
right.
pick their brain
That's
or
right.
learn from them. So how can you go to a meetup and you're meeting an experienced, let's say, investor, and you're like, oh man, like, what's NOI? What's cap rate? And they look at themselves like, bruh, you can Google that. You can read about that. You're wasting my time.
Right.
And people don't understand how that draws or turns people off. And they also don't understand that a lot of times in those avenues, just like anything in life, you only got one chance to make a first impression.
Mm-hmm.
So if you go to that person and in that split moment, in that networking event or whatever else it may be, or that email or phone call, whatever it is, whatever the medium is, and you waste that precious time asking beginner questions that really shows that you didn't have the hustle to look it up or read, what's that say about you? Very different conversation. But then but if you did your due diligence and you
Yeah.
read and educated yourself, you could ask a more pointed question like, hey, I was looking at these properties in Seattle. I noticed that the cap rate is this. I noticed that usually the NOI is this, but like, how do I make this cash flow? How do I do this to make this? And even though you're still asking a very pointed, pointed question, that person, whoever it may be, will respect it. But like, you know what? I've been in that position before.
Right.
Everybody started somewhere. You know what? I respect your hustle. You did your research. You know the vocab. Like, here's an answer.
Right.
I'll give you a nugget.
Well, not only that, what I like about that too is that it also tell people what you know, but also tell people what you don't know.
Right.
What I find is I mentor a lot of people in commercial real estate.
Mhm.
A lot of people call me and ask me for advice. And the biggest advice I give to them is be vulnerable. Tell me what you know. Tell me what you don't know. Like, don't put up a mask,
Yeah.
because it doesn't get you anywhere. And it's the biggest challenge people have in life, whether it's commercial real estate, business, relationships, you name it. It's like, how do you be authentic? And I think a lot of people feel like if I build up a house of cards, people can't criticize me.
Mhm.
So it's loving yourself. It's having that confidence like you talked about. And it's so powerful because, yeah, I agree with you. Like, do your homework as best you can, and you might not understand, and express to someone, hey, I don't understand this. Like, I'm buying a deal. How do I capitalize it? Like, what's a realistic loan to value for this deal?
Right.
And that's where you start building that deep rooted connection.
Mhm.
And what's great about commercial real estate is you start doing deals with people as well. And it's great because then you could really escalate your growth. You can get in different product types as well.
Mhm.
So I appreciate you sharing that. So you've written your first ever comic book,
Yeah.
which I am stoked to read. And it's amazing that you did this. So how has the reception been this far since you've written it, and what inspired you to create it?
It's been great.
Yeah.
It's almost like, I woke up one day and God just placed it on my heart. He literally gave me that vision. I shit you not. It was like, you need to write this book and do it now because it hasn't been done before. That sense of urgency. Life is only so long. And what I'm not going to do is I look back and I don't do it. And then somebody does it. And then I'm like, I didn't do it. And so I went to the races. I sat down, wrote out the script how I wanted it. And I am an artist, but it's a different feel when you're doing art from when you're doing comics,
Yeah.
because the layout has to be a certain type of way and the stitching and everything. So I did work with the artist, and that was a pain story for another day in terms of a lessons learned of working through an artist and
Hey,
going through the scripts.
That's life, man.
Yeah. So just it was a big hustle to get it done, and I essentially did it in a year and released it, and the feedback has been great. I really wanted the Rich Dad Poor Dad, but in DC and Marvel comic style of how to buy a large apartment complex in a comic book. And but, we all love superheroes, especially with Marvel and DC blowing up, and Avengers Endgame, Black Panther, Thor, whatever you want to call it, Wonder Woman. We all love comics, kids, adults, and so I'm like, damn. And then Rich Dad Poor Dad. Every time you hear it, it's like mindset. So okay, how do I give that to people and touch people in a unique way? Because everyone learns differently, and audiobooks are great, but everyone doesn't necessarily want to hear the audio form of learning. And books are great too, but what if it wasn't a comic and it was visual? That's something that anyone could pick up and teach them in a unique way. And so that's where the League of Wealth came to mind, where you've got the main kid is Michael, is a college student in a town called Enterprise City. And his superhero nickname is the Upriser.
Okay.
And so Ember is the girl on the back, and on the front cover, that's a love. She is the daughter of the professor, who kind of serves like it's like a Professor X, or always that mentor, that wise guy. So he is super knowledgeable about all things commercial real estate and multifamily. And he's Professor Brainwave, and he communicates and speaks through Michael or the Upriser throughout the comic. And so it guides Michael on this journey to free Enterprise City that is under captivity, and his mother's in financial ruin. And so he dreams to buy a multifamily property to free that. And in that story, he meets other superheroes that are in alliance with him. He meets them at real estate meetups, and they have superhero powers too, their own costumes. And the villains all represent challenges that you will face acquiring a multifamily property, and even once you acquire it, during management. And so each time he defeats a villain, he gets a golden key, and that golden key reveals also that lesson. Also throughout the comic book, there are many subtle ways on how I explain real estate terms. So it might be on a billboard when the Upriser is flying through the sky. It might be an equation. It might be just through a conversation. So those many different ways of how it's communicated uniquely, in addition to the golden key being explained. And at the very end, Michael finally confronts Capital Skull. And in my opinion, raising capital is one of the hardest challenges you can have. And so Capital Skull is the person that killed Michael's dad when he was a kid. And then Michael transferred his powers to his son. And he avenges his dad and overcomes and defeats Capital Skull, frees the city, frees his mom. But again, in that process, I explain the entire process of raising capital, what you have to do, interacting with investors, how you put your systems in place, the mindset you need to overcome fear, and the mindset you need to acquire a large apartment complex through the comic book.
Yeah, commercial real estate has so much mindset. You can't do this, or you're not good enough, or how are you going to get the money? And if you can master your mind, man, commercial real estate's a lot easier. I learned that. What's interesting, you brought up Rich Dad, Poor Dad. This past week, I interviewed Sharon Lechter. She was one of the co-authors. Amazing woman. I mean, just brilliant. And it was a special moment for me because when I was 22, 23 years old, I read that book. But it wasn't like you could order it off Amazon. There was no Amazon. So I ordered it off an infomercial. I tell the story at the beginning of the episode, and waited for a week, read the book that night, read again, and she inspired me to get into commercial real estate. So it was a real cool moment for me because I said one day I'm going to finally meet her. So I finally got to meet her this week and thank her.
Awesome.
And it was really cool.
Yeah.
And so that book really means a lot to me because she really impacted my trajectory in commercial real estate. So I was real grateful to see her. So you're involved in several charities, like I am as well. And you focus on vetting kids. And share more about the organizations you're involved with, and how can others help support those organizations?
I have the full list on the website for drmultifamily.com. So that's drmultifamily.com. That's also my handle on all social media. And yeah, just veteran nonprofits, outreach, Chicago too, just giving the book profits to those organizations as well, and even trying to now integrate that with deals, especially on if you're going to syndicate. I do a mix, so some I'll do on my own and some I will syndicate. But especially those syndication deals, laying it out where a certain percentage of the profits, just as you know, when you get the acquisition fee, there's an asset management fee, refinance, closing fee, all those type of things.
Sure.
Setting up a portion of that to go to those nonprofits and whatnot. And one day I would love to create a scholarship or something, but for now, that's what I do directly with the business to give back monetarily, in addition to just the time of the mentorship with the kids.
That's
But the
awesome.
full list is on the website.
So, as you know, the name of the show is I Own It. Being responsible for everything in your life. Was there a moment, a recent example, where you can look back and say, I didn't own that fully and I wasn't being responsible? What was that moment you could share with everyone?
That's a tough one. That's interesting. You know, I've done a lot of interviews. There's not many questions you get that
make you reflect and think.
Yeah, or that I haven't been able to really directly answer. I'm gonna say relationships.
Yeah.
Without going too much in detail, I'll just say that one thing that I realized that has come about and impacted me lately, this past year or so, is that, you know, in writing, and even writing Prove Them Wrong, you realize the impact that things have on you. Family curses, family ties, and how that bleeds into life and relationships.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And I'm talking about, like, you know, in your dating, in the dating sense.
Yep.
And I have definitely messed up in that sense. The things that the men in my life not leading correctly, not doing the right thing. And I did so much to change the narrative with the financial and everything else, but then it was like that one little box that was like left, you know. And like, my mom is an angel. She is amazing. Like, she taught me and my brothers how to treat women right and treat them like queens and give them the world. But it's still, and you still do, right? But that doesn't mean that. Crazy how when you really tap into your family things and those family ties, how they impact
That's right.
your relationships with like insecurities or doubts or fears. And it was the fear part that got me, the doubt part that got me, when you get something that's good and you do a lot of things to almost self-sabotage because you're like, it's too good.
Yeah, you realize, am I good enough to have this?
Yeah.
Is this right?
And you do dumb stuff and you mess it up.
That's right.
So I would say that.
All right. Well said. I totally agree with that.
Yeah.
So what's the best way to engage with you so our audience can connect with you? Is there a website? Is it?
I would say at Dr. Multifamily, like I said, as at DR and then Multifamily. If you type that in Google, I'll come off the LinkedIn, the Twitter, the Facebook. The website is drmultifamily.com, provethemwrongthebook.com. That will list all the books on Amazon, on Goodreads. You can reach out to me through any of those platforms and I'll respond.
Cool. Well, we're going to wrap up with our 3 questions. Are you ready?
Let's do it.
All right. So where she's sitting, we usually have a couch. So imagine you're on the couch. I say, get on the couch. You're 30 years old now. Been through a lot of experiences as a young man. And you should be proud of yourself. I mean, it's really amazing how far you've come in life when you can reflect back. When you were 16 years old and you're laying on the couch and you're 30 now, and you can go back in time and talk to yourself and give advice, what would you tell yourself now that you're this grown man, experienced, you've been through the Navy, you're investing in real estate, you're financially successful, you've written books? What are you going to tell yourself? What would you tell yourself to help yourself at 16 years old, knowing what you know now?
I would have accomplished more. I would have started sooner. I would have cared more about reading and the power of it at an early age.
Okay.
That was what unlocked my mind. I always said to myself, if I ever, again, this is not a plug that I did or didn't, and I'm not going to confirm or anything like that. But if I did,
put a disclaimer on it.
Disclaimer now.
I love it.
If I did sell drugs, I would hide it in a library.
Okay.
Because people don't read.
Right. Yeah.
They don't.
No.
So
it's laziness though.
right. I'm
That's
making
why.
a joke about it. I'm making
Right.
funny about it, but I'm serious, man. Like if I talked to my 16-year-old self, I was like, I would have read anything on business, anything on investments. I would have invested sooner. I don't care if it's buying a stock. I don't care if it's whole life insurance, the infinite banking concept, story for, as you know, we can go on that.
Right.
Any tangent, but I would have started writing. I wouldn't have been fearful. I don't care what the age is. I would have wrote and wrote and wrote and did those things early.
So it's our last day on earth. Just me and you.
Mm.
God forbid. It's our last meal together. Your choice. What are we eating and what are we drinking?
That's easy.
All right, lay it on the table then.
Giordano Chicago
Oh,
pizza.
baby.
That is what I am eating.
All right, it's getting hot in here
Yes.
now. Whoa.
They already know.
Awesome. What are we drinking?
What am I drinking?
Now it's our last day, so we can go crazy. Like we could do alcohol. I don't drink, but I collect wine, but I would open up the vault.
A good Moscow Mule.
Oh yeah. I love that.
Mm-hmm.
Nice. What are we getting on our pizza? Is it deep dish? Are we doing thin? What are we doing?
If we're doing, I love both.
We could do both. So what are we doing on
If we're gonna do thin crust, sausage and pepperoni.
Oh,
if we're gonna do deep dish, just the sausage.
Okay.
Call it a day.
Okay. You know what my favorite pizza is?
Yeah.
There's a place in Chicago I love going to. I get ground beef, red onion, green pepper, pineapple, jalapeno, well done. Best pizza in the world.
What's the place?
It's called Washington Gardens. It's in Highwood, Illinois. Oh my God, I just plugged this restaurant. But I'll tell you, when I go back, because my headquarters are in Chicago, that's where I go.
All right.
You get it well done, and you get a good pour of like a glass of wine. It's priceless. It's the best. It's one of these old school type Chicago places, you know, where you walk in. That's what I love about this place. Look at the brick.
Yeah.
Doesn't it feel like home?
It does. It just gives that rustic, like, rugged feel.
This is Chicago in here.
Yeah.
And
obviously I got great Chicago guests, so I'm real blessed today. This is really cool. So in the studio, you'll see we have a grand piano, we have drums, and we have electric guitars. You can bring in any band or musician into this studio with us to play us a song.
Any musician.
Now listen, they could be living or deceased. Who are you bringing in to play us a song? Your choice.
Any musician.
Anyone. Or band.
Alicia Keys.
Ooh. You know who I would love? Is Prince.
I thought about Prince.
Because Prince would be, Prince can play every instrument. If he could like just walk in, play Purple Rain, I would just be like, that's my bucket list. I'm out of here.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? How cool would that be?
That would be really
But I like
cool.
your selection.
I grew up off of her. My mom listened to her a lot.
Yeah.
I listened to her a lot. I always loved her music.
Yeah, she's fantastic.
Her ability to play piano and sing. So that's why I said her.
Very cool. Well, thanks for coming
Thank you.
and joining us. What a pleasure you are. What a great future you have, too.
Thank you.
And it's nice to connect.
Appreciate you for having me.
Absolutely. If you're interested in listening more shows like this on the Ben Reinberg I Own It show, kick that right-hand subscribe button on YouTube, and feel free to click that like button. When you can click like, we can share this great content with more people around the world and have great guests and the content that Dre Evans just dropped on us. And if you want to learn more about me, go to benreinberg.com. You can go on all the social media platforms and follow us as well. And if you want to learn about commercial real estate, go to alliancecgc.com. That's alliancecgc.com. If you're interested in investing in medical office passively, feel free to log on. We're happy to help you build wealth and create your legacy as well. Dre Evans, thank you so much for joining us. What a privilege, and I am so excited for your books and your continued success. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the I Own It podcast with Ben Reinberg. To hear our past episodes and connect with Ben, visit benreinberg.com.